Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar. This month, build your DISC capabilities and strengthen your culture. I'm Cindy Davidson. I'm Director of Business Solutions here at Corexcel, and I'm here with Andrea Vi. She manages this series for us. If you have any questions or challenges along the way, please check in with Andrea via chat, and she'll get back to you. You can choose her name or the panelist option. We do record this webinar, and we provide the recording later so that you can share it with your friends and colleagues. I'm going to just go over briefly what is DISC, since many of you on the line have some familiarity with DISC, and then really get into creating a DISC culture and what that means. And through doing that, you'll really want to understand how you can enhance your knowledge of DISC and really increase your capabilities in-house. Excuse me, please, because that's what it's all about, and getting the most from DISC resources that are available to you. So last month we did touch on culture and DISC. The 5-way style really impacts culture. And this month we're going to be talking about how you create a DISC culture. So what is DISC? In a nutshell, it's a behavior assessment that's the basis for a suite of programs all about understanding ourselves, how we're different from others, and how these differences affect our perceptions and our success in communicating and working with one another. We represent programs called Everything DISC, and in those programs, you can understand that your style also informs how you handle conflict, approach sales, management, and leadership roles. So the world of DISC is about 4 main styles, and they're laid out in a clear circumflex. Here you can see the bold letters of D, I, S, and C. And the brand of DISC that we represent brands itself by using that small I. We get that question a lot. All the Everything DISC programs are based on the same quadrants. So you'll see there are 4, D, I, S, and C. In addition, there are 8 scales. So you see the scales in words on the outside of the circumference here. And it starts with action at the top and goes the whole way around the circumference to results. You'll also notice that there are 12 different styles. Each quadrant has 3 styles within it. Many people aren't just a straight style, for example, a straight S. You can see in that S quadrant, there are people that have a secondary style of SC or SI. Participants can have a dot location anywhere. So sometimes people think that, gosh, all S's are the same. All people that live in the C quadrant are the same. Well, they're really not. It really depends on specifically where your dot location is on that scale. Because again, there are 80 items that each person is answering. So a lot of variations within those questions that can be answered. Here you see, let's go to the example, this person that's on the, that's in the S quadrant, pretty close to the outside of the circumference. That person would have a very strong preference to their style. The other example would be the opposite, where you see some dots in the middle of the circumference. They're kind of in that DI pie slice. So those people would have a slight preference to their DI style. And then maybe a moderate would be somewhere in between the two. So you see a dot right on the D that's right in the middle of that D. They would have a moderate preference to their D style, but they would not have a secondary style there. So again, exact location drives the personalization of each assessment. And there are 4 cornerstone principles. Sometimes these are overlooked and misunderstood, but basically it's about that all styles are equally valuable. There is no style that is better than another. We are complex individuals. DISC measures observable interpersonal behavior style. we're made up of other things too, our values, our intelligence, our business acumen. DISC doesn't measure that, but it measures a very important part of who we are and how we communicate and get along with others. So what is a DISC culture? I get asked that question a lot. And if you think about DISC and what it's all about, understanding yourself and other people, a DISC culture then, of course, would be one that promotes a culture of respect, appreciation, healthy disagreement by understanding ourselves and each other, recognizing that we're different and that perceptions, although you always hear perceptions are reality, perceptions can be caused by differences only, and they may or may not be reality. A DISC culture is one that really strives for patience, again, in that understanding differences. And I like this old adage, it understands before being understood. It really wants to understand where people are coming from, another old adage. It considers personal preferences and style and how they affect the workplace, from bringing a new hire on board to getting work done. What DISC is not about, or a DISC culture is not about, it doesn't mean that you get someone so, your perception of them is just about their style, that, oh, okay, now I know where they are. It's not about pigeonholing people or using DISC as an excuse. For example, well, you know my style, I'm focused on accuracy, so I'm going to ask, a lot of questions. It doesn't mean that we don't flex our behavior. That's what it's all about. Not a be-all, end-all. It's about one piece of us, a very important piece, however, and it's not a hiring by style tool. It's about understanding new hires when they come on board. It's about understanding how we approach new hires, perhaps, and how they can approach us better. But it's not about, when I say hiring by style, I hear sometimes people say, well, we've decided we're not going to hire this style, or we're only going to hire this style for this particular position. And that's really an inappropriate use of the tool. So here we'll get into talking about building a DISC culture. It's first about understanding, what is your culture? What's your DISC culture? What does your group look like in total? So in our world, it's done with what's called a group culture report, which starts out by illustrating the DISC makeup, of your team on a DISC map. So in this example, you can see all the little dots are people that are on this team. And this DISC map clearly spells out that, wow, most of this team, 41% of this team, or I shouldn't say most, but the biggest percentage of this team has a primary C style. The biggest percentage, most of the team, 65%, are on that left side of the circumference. So they are on the questioning, skeptical side as opposed to accepting and warm. The other thing that you can notice is that they are also more on the bottom part of the scale, which is more that cautious and reflective than that fast-paced, outspoken side. So it's a little clear sometimes to look at the how DISC considers style on a graph. When you're thinking about this team, you can think about, all right, how will individual members, perhaps in each style, manage a project? I had someone pose that question, hey, I'd like to understand how this impacts project management. So for example, people who live in that D style are going to approach a project much differently than their next door neighbor in that I style. And then this team in general, looking at the entire makeup, you have to really think about where is each type of style going to be most effective, most helpful in different stages of a project. So for example, someone who lives in a C style may be very valuable in the middle stages of a project, one where some preliminary decisions have been made, but we need to challenge, poke holes in ideas to kind of refine the solution. So this also affects how a team responds to change, right? How they're going to respond to a short deadline if they fail or succeed. Recognition. every one of these groups of people are going to respond differently to that. And in turn, all of that has an impact on how the group meets its goals. It affects the feelings of each team member. So think about it when we get back to, again, that new hire. All right, so you're going to hire a person on this team who is of the I style. Wow, very different than the majority makeup of this team. So what does it mean in terms of the challenges they're going to have and the challenges that the rest of the team is going to have? So in building a DISC culture, you're talking about, again, considering style when you are really building out your culture. You really want to commit first to that DISC is going to inform your conversations and your interactions. And we just spelled out some steps here to creating a DISC culture. They can be in different order depending on your current culture and who has most influence in your team. So really the quickest way usually is to go ahead and take assessments and debrief results. You'll always want to set aside some additional learning time because many of you who have been through this know it's not just about that one activity. And when you go into, again, identifying DISC champions and gaining confidence around the tool, you know that's kind of where that grounding takes place. It's not about, you know, one assessment debrief or one workshop. So that's what we're talking about here. Overall, it really is about, though, if you can get the support of leadership in some way. Sometimes that comes right up front. Sometimes it is better, again, just to dive right in with a team that has influence in taking assessments and debriefing results so that they can share their experience with the rest of the team and with leadership. It's that team that drives the culture. So again, you're taking the first step of taking an assessment. They were designed to be self-interpreting, but you want to have a communication plan before you jump in. So we recommend that you do set aside time to debrief the assessment. It's usually better in a group setting. Sometimes people do that one-on-one. So here's where you're going to start out asking participants, read through your profile, and when it begins giving you detailed narrative on the pages you see here, the sample pages, page 3, and it goes to 4, 5, and 6, they really want to check the areas they agree with, put X's in areas they disagree with, and question marks where they're not sure. And here's some following, again, sample pages that I referred to. These are the pages that talk about priorities, and then the page on the right is motivators and stressors. So again, where do I agree? Where do I disagree? Where am I not sure? Even though the assessments are valid and reliable, they're, my goodness, from 88% to 95% valid, you and your team will experience aha moments where you'll be like, wow, this is absolutely me. Sometimes people say, gee, I don't think I'm like this. And it takes that team meeting to say, oh, yeah, you are like that. But it doesn't mean that the entire profile has every word in it that you are going to relate to. There may be some exceptions. It doesn't invalidate the entire profile. So again, this is a great way. Really recommend that you have either an open discussion. It's usually best if there are, again, smaller groups, maybe groups of 5 or 6 that can hold a discussion. So if you've got a group of 20, you may want to break them up. You can organize them in smaller groups, either randomly, same styles together, or make sure each group has a representation of different styles. You can also customize the exercises, and we'll walk through a few based on your group's makeup or particular challenges. So again, this is where many times conversations happen where questions are cleared up. Hey, I don't think I'm like this. And the team responds, yeah, you are. So you can also introduce comparison reports. Along with everything DISC profile, comparison reports can be run at no charge. So it gives each participant, so you're running it between two people, and it gives each participant strategies and tips organized in 3 areas. What roadblocks can I expect in working with this individual? What are potential benefits? Why should I appreciate this other individual's attributes? And finally, how do I best work with them? And it walks through, it's a 10-page report. So what you can do is have these reports run, and you can start out by having people pair up with someone they work well with, because that's the easier conversation to start out with, and then move on to perhaps each person if you have time to do that, or at least some challenging folks, because this becomes a real nice objective platform for conversations that might otherwise be pretty difficult. If you want to truly integrate DISC and create a DISC culture, we recommend that you set aside some real learning time for DISC activities throughout the year. And again, it doesn't have to be just one, but many organizations start out with one, 3 to 4 hour, perhaps learning time to run some type of workshop. It's easy. We make it easy for you to conduct workshops internally by making available facilitation kits. For example, the Everything DISC Workplace program gives you a PowerPoint with sample embedded videos of each DISC style behavior in the workplace, a step-by-step facilitator's guide that basically says, put up this slide, say this, do this exercise, and all the handout templates that you would need. With that said, certainly some folks develop their own materials as well. One of the exercises you'll come across in this kit, and many people have done as well, is really fun and most preferred. It's called A Day in the Life, and it's it's all about, what is it like to be each style? So this is where, when we talked about dividing your group, you would divide your group into their respective styles. So all the D's would be together, all the I's, all the S's and C's. So in this sample here that's shown, they were doing it with sticky notes. But I've seen facilitators get real creative and actually give their groups flip charts, markers, or paints and crafty items, and ask them to create something that's illustrative of what it's like to live in their world, and then they each present it to the group. So if you can imagine, it can become a really, really fun hour to do something like this. Takes actually not an hour, probably about 30 to 40 minutes. Here's the C example. So you can see they put their light bulb and question mark. They're questioning ideas, and the calm C at the bottom. And then of course they live in a world of ideas, but they like to ensure accuracy and focus on logic. Those last 2 lines there. So you'd complete this exercise with all styles sharing their day. And then each participant, of course, the idea is, again, everyone likes to think, oh gosh, can we do this in a very short period of time? Maybe this isn't all done in the same day, but you really want participants at some point to spend quiet time reflecting on what it means for them personally, where they've had revelations of others they work with based on their style, and what that means in terms of what are they going to change going forward. Because this isn't just about information, it's about what am I doing with it, right? And that's, again, how you really have to reinforce starting the culture. So this is just a quick example, a quick note on the kit. It contains videos of members with different styles. And so this would be a sample of the handout that would go with the facilitator kit that is available to you. The team works through a project, for example. So the first illustrates how their style approaches a project. The second, what's stressing them out about this process. And the third one is about the team in conflict. And again, some people like to use these types of kits because it's a little bit less personal when you're just starting to learn about DISC, to perhaps see someone you don't know in a style And it allows the team to focus on what a style means as opposed to maybe an individual personality that they have had or not had challenges with. And again, all the exercises in this kit and any one you do, we would recommend follow sort of the same idea that it's personalized. You always have to take back. So sample page of the profile on the left, you're going to understand how you react to each style. In your profile, what's your profile saying to you? What does that mean for you in terms of things that you observe in your workplace and what you're going to do about it? And again, you may have experienced other assessments in your past that give you a lot of information. All of these profiles, whether it's the workplace or leader or management profile, they end up with 3 items, 3 strategies that you can implement right away. It's great, again, to know about yourself, but it's better to know what you're going to do about it, what you're going to change to be more effective. The facilitator materials, the kits are available again for every program. They run $1,195. Fully customizable, so you can add or delete slides. And you can certainly develop some of your own fun activities. You can find lots online. You can communicate with others through the Everything DISC users group on LinkedIn. And here's just a few I'm aware of. You know, maybe you integrate this into all your team meetings. So you have some little activity for 5 minutes before your team meeting starts. Ask them to compose an out-of-office email message and talk about how their different styles affected that. How about identifying styles of recent TV or movie characters, famous personalities or cartoons? I like this one. It's a charade. You just illustrate favorite body languages and ask the group to identify this style most likely to exhibit a particular body language. And a great team building, and one that kind of holds the team up, inspires. How about having each person go around and talk about one attribute of each team member's style that's appreciated? How about having team members share a little bit about their family members and why they think that? And I've also seen, this is kind of interesting, where the group map that I showed you earlier is turned into a poster, and it's kind of hung up, and people throughout the year kind of post comments regarding their experiences, regarding their aha moments, perhaps regarding something, again, a personal positive attribute and how that really impacted in a positive way the team meeting their goals. A key component is, again, not to go it alone, but you've got to identify champions, and having people take the assessment, go through some type of learning experience is really a great way to see who's most excited and interested, who's benefiting, and who's likely to help you take this concept throughout the organization, convince leaders that it is something that can really transform your workplace and really help others understand, again, how to be most effective with it. So surround yourself with those champions for sure. And then you will want to gain confidence more and a grounding in DISC, and you'll certainly want your champions to do that. There are so many resources available to you. I'll take them in an order that we've already talked about. We've already talked about the facilitator kits. We certainly do orientations around that. There's a DISC manual. It's $50 that will give you, my goodness, it walks through all the overview, theory, methodology of how the assessments were developed, how to interpret results, demographic considerations, the validity and reliability information so that you can address people who bring up those questions in classes or just in a debrief, and really all the statistics for those of you who are interested in that level of detail. Couple things to give you additional education. There's a DISC Essentials program, which is an online self-paced program. Takes about 4 hours to complete. Great way to get some grounding in DISC. Many choose to go through DISC certification. There are 2 options there. There's an online that does have 90-minute, 4 weeks of 90-minute live sessions. There's a certification on site at Wiley in Minneapolis for 2 days. And then we can certainly work with you to develop a custom train the trainer program if you would prefer to go down that route. In terms of things that are no cost for you, you can go on our website and find the research report. We can send you white papers if you're interested in white papers and case studies. We can certainly send those to you. Just send us an email after this workshop and we'll reply with those. And then the last thing I'm going to have to go through very quickly, because I know we promised this to not go too long for you this afternoon, is an online portal called My Everything DISC. It's really exciting. And here's what this is all about. You can get education right away once you complete an assessment because you'll be given a link to open an account on this portal. It gives you information about DISC and also becomes your private web-based repository and access to your own profile results. So for example, I've taken 4 DISC assessments: workplace, management, leadership, and a conflict assessment. I can access all of those results from one portal. It's accessible laptop, desktop, and also smartphone. And here's what it looks like. So type of information available. You can explore the DISC map, gives you lots of information about each style, DISC theory, 2 dimensions of human nature, lots of information there. 4 quadrants of DISC, how to stretch, DISC research. So for those who challenge and say, well, why is this valid? Where did this come from? Really gives the background, the scales, the reliability and validity. And you can actually listen to Mark Scullard, who's Director of Research at Wiley. He does podcasts. So if you're a learner who likes to listen as opposed to read, you can really either listen to the podcast or, again, download a transcript right from this site. We talked earlier about comparison reports. One of the features of My Everything DISC is that you can invite others to compare with you. So I have an account, I can invite a coworker to compare with me, and then right on, again, our desktop and our smartphones, I can pull up and see, all right, this particular person, her coworker is Marcus Mumford, and she can get tips. She can actually pick the category. Gosh, I got to build a relationship or get buy-in with Marcus. What do I have to be aware of before I walk into a meeting with him? Very, very cool. So again, you joined this webinar because you know that creating a culture goes beyond taking an assessment, doing one workshop, doing a debrief. So you really do want to think about, because it is all about application. What are group learning experiences? Think about how you can implement it, integrate it, ask questions in each team meeting. How about interview questions and onboarding? So again, you've got an I culture and you're onboarding a person who has a C style. What's that going to mean for that person and for the team? Have open conversations about it. Again, the more you can inform your conversations with style, the more you're going to make it a part of your culture. Can help you with leadership development, conflict, change, and project management, and certainly during strategic planning. Consider style, consider how that works for each individual and for the team as a whole. Other little tools that you can buy, there's a card game that's really fun that kind of embeds what DISC means for a particular team. DISC buttons, tags, posters, interaction guides. I will caution you, there are other models of DISC out in the marketplace. So some DISC models have different colors. So you just want to make sure that you're working with the Everything DISC family, that these items work that are compatible with. Again, we talked briefly about how you can get your team on an assessment and debrief results. You'll want to set aside learning time, really believe in those DISC champions. And certainly, if leadership can be part of that championship group in the beginning, all the better. And then it's about gaining confidence, having a group of people, yourself, your stakeholders, your champions, really gain confidence and ground in DISC so that they feel good about answering questions, concerns, challenges about DISC, and they can also then really help spot opportunities to keep DISC alive and to perhaps use different tools. Again, I invite you to get started. If you're already a customer, certainly just let us know how we can support you. If you're not, let's have a discussion and we can help you with a plan. And, what you need to do is decide, what you want to accomplish and what it looks like for you. But we'll provide that support and training for you. There are, I mentioned here on 4, we'll set up an account. There are administrative accounts that we can set up for you. It's called an Epic administrative account so that you can kind of take the ball and, again, have access to all of your reports and be able to send out your own codes to people that you hire, bring on new as team members. So again, I thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Please take a few moments. We're going to send out a very short, I promise you it's short, so that we can get feedback and understand how to best serve you in the future. If you'd like further information or you'd like to just have a discussion about anything suggested here, all you need to do is contact us and we'll set a time and make that happen for you. Thanks again so much.